In The Observer, we are, of course, looking ahead to the World Cup this summer.
Is that fans will almost vote with their feet to a degree, and the fans simply won't go in the numbers that FIFA and the USA and Mexico and Canada would expect. And I think
something broke inside global football this week, and it didn't shatter loudly. There were no protests outside stadiums, no emergency press conferences, no angry chants. Instead, the crack appeared quietly, inside German football itself. A single sentence changed the tone of everything. A boycott was no longer unthinkable. In that moment, the 2026 World Cup stopped feeling inevitable and started feeling fragile. When Germany speaks carefully instead of loudly, the entire football world listens. And this time, FIFA heard something it fears most: doubt. For years, the 2026 World Cup was sold as untouchable, bigger than ever, richer than ever. Hosted by the United States with Canada and Mexico as partners, it was supposed to be a victory lap for modern football. Record revenues, global unity, seamless logistics. Politics, FIFA insisted, would stay outside the stadium gates. That illusion collapsed the moment a senior figure inside German football publicly acknowledged that walking away from the tournament was a real option. Germany is not just another participant. It is one of football's economic anchors. Its national team drives global television audiences. Its presence stabilizes sponsorship valuations. Its credibility lends legitimacy to tournaments. When a vice president of the German Football Association referenced historic Olympic boycotts and said the idea deserved serious discussion, it wasn't outrage. It was leverage. And leverage doesn't need to shout to be effective. What made the moment dangerous for FIFA was timing. The tournament is approaching fast. Broadcasting contracts worth billions are already structured around European giants carrying viewership. Sponsors have paid premium rates, assuming Germany, France, England, and others will be front and center. Advertising models are built on certainty. The moment Germany allowed uncertainty into the system, the math changed everywhere. Not publicly, but internally. Inside legal teams, risk assessments, and renegotiation clauses that only activate when assumptions break. History made the warning heavier. Sporting boycotts are not theoretical. The 1980 Olympics proved that once participation becomes conditional, legitimacy evaporates even if competitions continue. Germany understands that precedent deeply. By invoking it, officials weren't threatening FIFA. They were reminding it that power in global sport ultimately rests with those willing to walk away. Inside FIFA, the public response remained predictable. Neutrality was reaffirmed. Politics and sport were declared separate. Privately, the tone shifted. A World Cup without Germany doesn't just lose prestige, it loses financial gravity. Sponsors don't invest in abstractions. They invest in matchups, brands, and guaranteed attention. Remove one pillar and the entire structure weakens. Germany wasn't alone for long. Other European federations adjusted their language almost immediately. Denmark acknowledged sensitivity. French officials avoided firm commitments. British media began treating boycott scenarios as plausible rather than extreme. None of this was dramatic, and that made it more destabilizing. In diplomacy and sport alike, caution often signals preparation. Denmark's position carried unique weight as territorial rhetoric around Greenland entered American political discourse. Once sovereignty enters the equation, neutrality becomes harder to maintain. Federations don't need coordinated exits to cause damage. Delayed decisions and conditional language fracture confidence just as effectively. FIFA's greatest risk was no longer a boycott, it was erosion. A World Cup missing multiple European powers would be a fundamentally different product. These teams are not optional. They are the reason global advertising rates hit 9 figures. Without them, broadcasters reassess value, sponsors hesitate, lawyers revisit contracts written under assumptions that no longer hold. Pressure builds silently, through projections rather than protests. Amid this uncertainty, 2 countries moved without confrontation. Mark Carney said nothing about boycotts. That silence was strategic. Canada positioned itself as predictable, stable, and reliable. Qualities suddenly in short supply. Mexico followed the same approach. With experience hosting World Cups and a reputation for logistical readiness, it didn't campaign, it simply stood ready. Chaos at the top creates opportunity for those prepared below. The irony was sharp. The 2026 tournament was promoted as a showcase of American leadership, yet aggressive rhetoric toward allies and restrictive immigration policies turned it into a test of U.S. predictability. FIFA's claim that football exists above politics grew harder to defend when travel bans, visa uncertainty, and enforcement risks shaped who could attend and who could not. Former FIFA president Sepp Blatter intensified the moment by endorsing calls for fans to avoid matches in the United States. His support of Swiss legal expert Mark Pieth's warning that unpredictable enforcement made travel risky added credibility to concerns once dismissed as exaggeration. Blatter's relevance lies not in current power, but in institutional memory. When someone who once ran FIFA signals alarm, it resonates. Concrete examples followed. Fans from Senegal and Ivory Coast faced sudden uncertainty due to visa restrictions. Supporters from Iran and Haiti, both qualified nations, remained effectively barred. These were not abstract risks. They disrupted travel plans and signaled that attendance could hinge on shifting political criteria rather than transparent policy. For a tournament built on movement, that unpredictability corrodes trust. German voices grew clearer. Okay Guttlich, vice president of the German Federation, openly questioned why past Olympic boycotts were considered necessary while current threats were dismissed. He criticized selective outrage and challenged FIFA leadership directly, arguing that values cannot be defended selectively. His comments reflected a broader discomfort spreading through European football, the sense that silence itself was becoming a position. The movement spread beyond Europe. In South Africa, opposition leaders urged withdrawal. In the Netherlands, over 100,000 fans signed a boycott petition. British lawmakers publicly raised the issue. None of these actions alone could collapse the tournament. Together, they normalized doubt, and doubt is poison for global spectacles built on certainty. The broader implication went beyond 2026. FIFA's authority has always depended on the assumption that participation is automatic. The moment Germany made it conditional, power shifted. Host nations were no longer judged only on stadiums and revenue, but on diplomacy, stability, and how allies and fans are treated. For Canada and Mexico, this was an unexpected credibility boost. They didn't threaten, they simply appeared reliable. For the United States, the signal was unavoidable. Hosting the world now requires more than size and money. It requires restraint, predictability, respect. The tournament may still proceed, matches may be played, trophies awarded, but the illusion of insulation from geopolitics is gone. Germany didn't end the World Cup. It asked the question FIFA never wanted asked: what happens if participation becomes optional? That question alone shifted the balance of power. Once walking away becomes conceivable, control no longer belongs solely to governing bodies. It belongs to nations willing to say no. And that is why this moment matters. The 2026 World Cup was designed as a celebration of dominance. Instead, it became a stress test. Football does not transcend politics. It follows power, stability, and trust. When those fracture, the spectacle follows. Germany delivered the first signal. The world noticed. What comes next will decide not just the fate of this tournament, but how global sport survives in an era where certainty is no longer guaranteed. If this matters to you, stay with the channel. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and join the conversation, because the future of football is being rewritten right now. If you want to understand how global power, politics, and influence are quietly reshaping events we were told were above politics, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. These changes don't announce themselves with breaking alerts. They unfold through small statements, diplomatic signals, and calculated silences, and by the time the consequences are obvious, the decisions are already locked in. This channel breaks down those shifts early, before narratives harden and options disappear. Share your thoughts in the comments. Is the idea of politically neutral global sport finished, or is this a temporary rupture? Your perspective matters, and we'll continue tracking where this leads next.